When Wayne was talking about having to overcome adversity, it reminded me of 2008. Anybody selling real estate in 2008 that's in the room? A few of us still standing. Well, at that time, I was having a conversation with one of my mentors, and I said, Mike, gosh, I just cannot believe the amount and the size of the problems that I'm having to deal with. And he says, well, Don, being able to handle those problems is a privilege of leadership. And what I would say to you as a service professional is it's a privilege for you when you're having to deal with that chaos in a transaction to have that. If we didn't have that kind of friction, we would have probably been disintermediated by technology already, okay? And in fact, when you're thinking about the size of the problem, just understand that the size of the problem that you can handle will roughly be in proportion to how much money you end up earning. Okay, so don't not want problems and ask for them big, and you'll make a lot of money. All right, so one of the things that we're being told is that, well, first of all, did you feel the shift in 2022? How about a raise of hands if you felt the shift? Okay, so about May, in most parts of the country, I have agents in 34 states, so it's nice to be able to get a good spectrum of it, but it was pretty universal. The market shifted, right? And we were, by the way, on an annualized basis in the United States selling about 6 million properties, which is, on a historical context, a lot. Now, this year, we're projected to sell about 4 million properties. Okay, there are not going to be as many casual sales. What's going to trigger a sale now is a life event. Do you think there's a pretty good chance that babies are going to continue to be born, right? And that kids are going to graduate from college, and people are going to get married, and fortunately divorced as well. They will be promoted, and they will be transferred. Man, I was just reading a report this morning. If you're looking for referrals of a high-end clientele, I recommend your best friends now become listing agents in Silicon Valley. They just announced at Google that 12,000 six-figure income employees are being released, okay? And if you're living in Silicon Valley, you're probably making at least $250,000. If they relocate to Vancouver or Portland, they're probably going to buy a pretty decent home, right? So get yourself a referral partner, maybe even an accountability partner that is in that market. So one of the exercises that I do with my clients when I'm teaching them on professional networking is I ask them to think about the event and then think about what professionals are tied to that event. Okay, so here we're assessing the act of being married. And so who knows about that event before it occurs? By the way, you might write this term down, relational AI. I know AI is all the thing at the moment, okay? But if that's confusing to you, you can practice relational AI. I'm going to teach you right now. So someone's going to get married. A wedding planner is going to probably know about it. How about a venue manager, the photographer, the cake decorator, a florist? I want you to also notice, by the way, that those are pretty much in order of who's going to know about it when. In other words, the wedding planner is probably going to know about it before the florist, okay? One of the things that you want to be thinking about if you're going to choose to be a professional networker is who's upstream, and actually I'm going to be recommending a book for you, but who is upstream of that professional and downstream. Okay? One of the reputations that I'm going to ask you to consider having is that of connector, right? And I want you to think about each professional who is upstream of them, and then I want you to work on connecting them to that type of professional. Incidentally, the people that are downstream from them, those are people they have influence, they are sending business to. We want to be introduced to those people. Does that make sense? All right, so if you're going to build a professional network, there's a couple considerations that you want to make. First of all, in all of the service economy, you have businesses that are on a pricing spectrum, from the cheapest to the most expensive. What you want to do, and I actually have an exercise for this, it's a 16-box grid, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that whoever you strategically align with is roughly on the same latitude as you. Okay, well, there's another spectrum, and that is transactional to relational. I've had over 5,000 agents working in my brokerages across the country. And what I can tell you is there's roughly two types of agents. There are transactional agents, and there are relational agents, okay? At Starbucks, I have a name. At McDonald's, I'm a number, okay? So we do not want clients to feel like they are a number or that they have a dollar sign on their forehead, okay? Now, it does not mean you have to be best friends with everybody. You can really only have one best friend. What it does mean is that you should be treating that person as a person, right? So when you're looking at building your network, we only want people in our network that are relationship-based. There's a few questions that you can ask to reveal that. You know, for example, a homeowner's insurance company, I don't know if you're aware of this, but they are legally obligated to renew a policy every year. It's a law, okay? Ask them how they do that. What's their process? Do they call the client, or do they send a letter and email? Okay? If they're calling, relational. Letter and email, transactional. Okay? If they are not calling their clients to do that renewal, what do you think they're going to be? How good of a strategic partner are they going to be? Okay? The last thing is growth mindset, and I particularly run into this with CPAs because a lot of CPAs have all the clients that they can handle. Okay, and so if they have all the business that they want or need, it's unlikely that they're going to be a very good referral partner. And even if they do want more business, if they don't maintain a growth mindset, which, by the way, amazing book on that subject is Mindset by Carol Dweck, and then you probably aren't going to have a good partner there. So before you embark on this journey, though, of building your network, we're going to ask a few questions of ourselves. Because what we want to do is we're going to set the standard for the network that we're going to build. And the first question I have for you is, do you show up on time? Okay, if you have a vendor that is habitually late, let's say 15 minutes, more than a couple times, do you continue to refer that person? I don't, because I'm embarrassed they're going to embarrass me and disrespect my client. Okay? The next thing is, do you do what you say? That's another way of saying, do you under-promise, over-deliver? And if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. My referrals will be roughly in proportion to the extent I exceed my client's expectations. Okay, when you do what you say, you know what that entitles you to? Being able to do business again with that person. That is not going to gain you raving fan status, okay? You've got to exceed the expectations that you set. So be careful going out and giving them your 21-point marketing plan. I've done that, okay? And then the home sold for full price, but I'd only completed 19 of the 21 items. Did I actually do everything I said? No. Okay? So what I tell the agents that I'm coaching is, go in there armed for nuclear war. But if all you need is a pea shooter, just pull out your pea shooter. Okay? The next thing is, do you finish what you start? I would say that that is a particularly sensitive one right now. We were at a dinner last night, and Brent was sharing with us about the mortgage industry. And what he was saying that 40% of the loan officers with an NMLS license chose not to renew their license. 40%. Okay? Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but there were roughly, at its peak, about 1.6 million realtors. 40% would be 640,000 going away, okay? I don't happen to think we're gonna lose 640,000, partly because for the most part in the mortgage industry, the loan officers work on a W-2 status, and the companies tend to be a little more disciplined financially, I have found, than real estate brokerages, because us realtors are 1099, and there isn't a huge downside to having someone on your roster as long as they're not a virus, okay? I do think we're gonna lose a lot. I think we'll probably lose 25 to 30%, okay? Now, 25 or let's say 30% of 1.6 million, I think is 480,000. We're gonna come down, well, let me put it this way. We're not gonna have over 1 million realtors that are really working. We might still have about 1.2 million that have licenses, okay? But your competition, because of this shift, has in fact dropped by at least 500,000, okay? Now, remember I said, at least NAR thinks we're gonna have about 4 million sales, which, as you know, there's 2 transactions in a sale, those representing the buyer and the seller, so that's 8 million transactions. If there's 1 million of us working, that's 8 deals apiece. You know, at your guys' average sales price now, that's actually a living wage for most people, okay? It's not great, okay? But it's really not that bad. Now, today, in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to add 2 transactions a month. But I just want you to keep in perspective, if it feels really, really hard, just tie a knot in the rope and hang on. Because your competition is literally exiting stage right now. Mentally, they already have, okay? But physically, they will as well. Now, those first 4 points, I want to credit a gentleman that I used to be coached by, Dan Sullivan at Strategic Coach. He authored a book called How the Best Get Better, which I encourage you to read. But this last one is mine, and I added it because I think it's important. And in real estate, one of the practices that I will do when I'm coaching an agent is I'll ask them, what is your ideal client? You know, and I'll have responses like, well, you know, a buyer or seller in the Portland, Vancouver market. Okay, well, that distinguishes you from like 0 people. And you have, I don't know how many realtors there are in the Portland metro area, but more than 10,000, right? Okay, so you have 3 choices. You can have a geographic niche. You can have a demographic niche, like serving the military clientele, teachers, physicians, et cetera. Or you can have a property type niche, like one of my buddies was the duplex king, okay? But what I want for you is when someone thinks of that particular niche, that particular neighborhood, they think of you, okay? When you get the call, gosh, Heather, I see your signs all over the place. Will you come by and tell us what our home is worth? Okay, you've arrived. Okay, now, with all the technology that we have today, I'm here to tell you that the way the consumer determines who the leader in the market is signs in the neighborhood. So if your signs are spread all across, you might have 24 of them listed. But if they're spread all over Portland, Vancouver, are you going to get that phone call? I don't think so. Okay, but if you have 6 active listings in one zip code and you're putting out a reasonable number of open house signs, at least 10 or 12, you very well may get that call. So be the best at something. Okay, so when you make the decision to be a professional networker, my encouragement to you is to first, if you're a realtor, align with a lender. If you're a lender, align with a realtor. And remember that is a service match for you, both on the price and relationship spectrum, okay? My experience with this is that the lenders tend to have better relationships with the asset-based professionals, the CPAs, the financial advisors, the attorneys, the insurance folks. And some of them are downstream of them, so they have influence too. Insurance, for example. The realtor, on the other hand, will have a stronger relationship, tend to have a stronger relationship with the vendors. The vendors I want you guys to think about are the things that people do right to their home, right before they list their home. Okay? So do we paint it, landscape it, replace the flooring, window coverings, remodel, hire a handyman? Okay? That's who we want in our networking group. Now, once you get this group assembled, we're going to train them, and I'm going to give you a couple questions to train them. But what I have found is that for whatever reason, the way our industry has been set up, as realtors, when there's a buffet, for us, what it feels like is we bring the food and everyone else brings a fork. Okay? And that sucks. Okay, so, and I'll be training my realtors on how to professionally network and all this, and they're like, man, Don, I'm not getting referrals from these guys. By the way, I want to have you change your verbiage just slightly. Don't ever ask a professional for a referral. Do ask them for a professional introduction by text, 3-way text. So no referral to referral, you want an introduction. CPAs in particular, financial advisors and attorneys will pretty much not refer agents because they're worried you're going to embarrass them. Okay? An economic panel is great. I did one of these in Colorado for one of my agents. We had 35 people on. The subject was buying a second home and turning it into an Airbnb. He ended up getting a $1.6 million deal out of that event. And 4 months later, actually we had 2 realtors on the panel, one in Denver, one in Breckenridge. The Breckenridge realtor referred him another client. So he actually got over $2 million in business out of one economic panel. What I like about economic panels is the fee for being one of the panelists is that you have to promote it to your database. So if there's 4 of you and you each have a database of 300, do you see how you are actually being promoted, your event, where you're going to be the featured exclusive realtor, is being promoted to 900 local people, trusted relationships that are from someone that is essentially giving you a inferred endorsement. Super powerful. And by the way, size-wise, we had 35. That's actually kind of a lot. What I have found, we're all Zoom experts now because of the pandemic, but what I have found is when you go over about 24, people get lost in the weeds on Zoom. And it's hard to keep engagement. So don't worry about having 200 people on there or whatever. I've actually found that the sweet spot for Zoom is 12 to 24. Now, remember I said when you're setting up your mastermind group, or that's not a bad way to think about it. When you're setting up your networking group, I want you to think about it as a mastermind. And so I train the agents on having 3 events a quarter, 2 Zooms, 1 in person, and they are expert panel event, economic panel, and then in-person event. And the mastermind event is one of those. Your group, I encourage you to read a book. These are 4 fantastic books. Probably the one that got me started on this more than a decade ago was Bob Burg's book, Endless Referrals. That was the book that taught me the question that is music to a professional's ears, which is, what is an ideal client for you? Like if I were to refer you, what would you want me to send you? Okay, you'll find that in Endless Referrals. Upstream is the most recent one I was introduced to, and that's where we're talking about the position of a professional, right? So if you're the venue manager, the wedding planner is probably upstream, and the florist is probably downstream, okay? But your group should have 1 book a quarter that you're going through together. Now, I want you to keep in mind that each of these professionals that are in your group, potentially they can refer you, but each and every one of them have a sphere of influence, and they have a past clientele that they may have invested 10, 20 years in building relationships with. Here's some math for you, worth writing down. You get 12 professionals in your network. If someone doesn't have 200, this is another great question for you to ask them. If someone doesn't have at least 200 people in their database, and you do, I would encourage you to not let them in your network. Even if they're a match, they're clearly not working their database, okay? But if you hold that standard, then your group, even at its initiation, is going to have 2,400 consumers tied to those 12 relationships. If people move every 10 years, it's 240 sales a year. Okay, news alert, you're not going to get all those deals. Okay? Because they're going to be, one of the people is going to be, yeah, it's a client of the CPA, but you know, the spouse is a realtor. You can get 10%. You can get 24. If you teach them the magic questions, which we're going to cover in a moment. So the best foundation I have found for one of these groups on the asset-based side is homeowners insurance, financial planner. There's actually multiple attorneys. I had one of my agents, incidentally, in a single calendar year, 13 transactions from a bankruptcy attorney. Okay, and unfortunately, divorce attorneys are one of the best sources. I was told by an executive of one mortgage company that the average divorce attorney meets with 7 new clients a week. Okay? And more than half the time there's a divorce, there's a transaction. We've talked a little bit about, by the way, CPAs are great if they want to grow and they have a growth mindset. Do you know the average CPA has 500 clients, a decent one? Okay, so do that math for just a moment. CPA has 500 clients, people move every 10 years, 50 sales a year. That CPA has somebody listing their home every single week of the year. How many referrals did you get from CPAs last year? Okay. The reason why you're not getting them is because you haven't trained your CPA to ask the question. And the question, well, first of all, when we go to a CPA now, don't they always ask us, did you buy or sell a property last year? It's on a form and you check the box, okay? By a raise of hands, how many of you have a CPA that asks you if you're intending to buy or sell a property in the coming tax year? I see no hands going up, okay? It's about 1 or 2%, okay? So don't feel bad. Most CPAs don't ask that question. But how in the world are they going to refer you or introduce you if they find out about the event after it occurs? And by the way, if the CPA was going to do anything to mitigate their client's taxes, don't they need to know about the event before it happens? All right, on the realtor side, these are the professionals that I have found you want to prioritize. Landscapers, property management, but they cannot obviously sell real estate, okay? But you can pay them a referral if they have a license. Senior advisor is a really interesting one. Not a lot of people are aware of. Of course, we all know about assisted living. The challenge with assisted living is by the time they get to the assisted living manager, they've often already have the process underway. What you want to do is go upstream to the senior advisor, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but that's a whole career now. There are senior advisors that are commissioned to place people into assisted living places. And then you can see the rest of them: remodeling, painting. Painting is my favorite. That's how I got started on this whole thing. I had an agent that would get 4 to 6 deals a year from his painter. I have many today, they get 3 to 4. And, but you're gonna have to coach them, and I'm gonna teach you how to do that. But just for the record though, by the way, there's only 3 reasons why we paint our home. We're preparing it for sale, we have deferred maintenance, or we just bought it and we wanna fix it up. So about 25% of the time, someone's painting a home, they're preparing it for sale. A decent painter paints 4 to 5 homes a month. So every single month, they're painting a home that's going to go on the market. All right, another thing worth writing down is you will be judged by the quality of questions that you ask, and I'm about to teach you 2 very valuable ones. The question you teach the asset-based professional, and it's phrased slightly different in different scenarios. For example, when you're training your insurance agent, you know, Farmers Insurance, for example, has this thing called the Farmers Friendly Review. And you tell them, hey, you know how you do that Farmers Friendly Review? Well, just keep doing that, that's great. All I ask, and by the way, Farmers Friendly Review is code for trying to upsell you more policies, right? After you've done that, but before you hang up, I just want you to ask one little question, which is, by the way, how are you liking your place? That's it. An insurance agent will tell you that, oh, well, I find out about the deal right at the end, so it's hard for me to reciprocate. Okay, well, let me tell you, they have 500 clients, right? About 60% of those are unattached to other realtor relationships. So that's 300. People move every 10 years. So that insurance agent, if they have a book of business of 500, has 30 referable deals a year. The question for home improvement professionals, the painter, the plumber, the landscaper, is what has prompted this job for you? You know, because if you're going to move in the near future, we'll use a quality paint, but we may not want to use the most expensive one, right? And we're going to do a great job, but maybe not go to the same cost and detail as if you tell me you're going to live here for another 10 years. Now, if your painter actually asked you that, wouldn't you be like, whoa, kind of impressed that this guy is actually trying to match my job to me, my need, you know? All right, so that concludes my talk, but I don't want to leave this message without issuing a bit of a challenge to you, okay? We're in a challenging time, okay? It is going to get better when your friends choose to not stick with it, right? And interest rates are going to come back, right? But in the meanwhile, while you're not crazy busy, take the time to build yourself a professional network that provides you a firmer foundation for the next time this comes around. Newsflash, we're in a cyclical industry. This isn't going to be the last correction. This is my third correction. Of course, I'm kind of an old guy, all right? But the point is that not only can you add 2 sales a month right now, not overnight, by the way. It'll take you 6 months, maybe a year even to get up to that level of professional referral volume. But you can do it. I have had many agents do that very thing, and I hope you become one of them. Thank you.